Hello, everyone. Welcome back to my YouTube channel, FluentRise Podcast. Today, we're talking about something that almost every English learner experiences, but very few people talk about honestly. Kent, you know the feeling, you're practicing English alone, everything feels perfect, you know the words, you understand grammar. You even create sentences in your mind, but the moment someone asks, "Can you introduce yourself?" Suddenly, nothing. Your mind goes completely blank, your heart starts beating faster, words disappear, and then you think, why is this happening? I know English, so why can't I speak? If this has happened to you, this episode is for you. Short pause. And I want you to know something before we begin. There is a huge difference between knowing English and being able to speak English comfortably. Most people think, my vocabulary is weak, my grammar is bad. Okay, I'm not talented, but in reality, the problem is usually not English. The problem is what happens inside your mind. Today, we're going to understand why your mind freezes during conversations and how you can slowly train yourself to speak more naturally. Because once you understand what's happening, everything starts changing. Pause. Let me tell you a quick story. Imagine two people. Person A studies English every day. Reads books, watches videos, learns new words. Person B studies less than person A, but when it's time to speak, person B speaks confidently. Meanwhile, person A struggles. Why? Does person B know more English? Not always. So what's the difference? Yeah, confidence, maybe practice, partly, but there's something deeper. Your brain processes speaking differently than studying, and this changes everything. Think about it. Let me ask you something. Have you ever prepared an English sentence perfectly? Then when it was time to say it, you suddenly forgot simple words? You knew the answer, but couldn't say it. Later, after the conversation ended, all the words came back. And you thought, why didn't I say that? That experience is more common than you think. And today I want to explain why, short pause, your brain has two different modes. The first mode is learning mode. This is when you're watching videos, reading subtitles, memorizing vocabulary, doing exercises. Everything feels calm, no pressure, your brain has time. Now there's another mode, speaking mode. This mode is different. Your brain suddenly has to do many things at once. Listen, understand, translate, build sentences, choose grammar, remember vocabulary, speak. And do all of this in seconds. That's a lot. Imagine trying to open 10 browser tabs at the same time on an old computer. What happens? It slows down. Yeah? Sometimes it freezes, your brain can feel the same way, and when too many things happen together, blank, no words. Yeah, no confidence, only silence, pause. But here's the interesting part, your mind is not actually empty. Your English knowledge didn't disappear, your brain simply became overloaded. And when people don't understand this, they start saying things like, I'm bad at English, I'll never become fluent, I'm too old. But those thoughts create another problem. Now speaking becomes emotional, now every conversation feels like a test. And once your brain thinks, this is dangerous, it activates stress, and stress blocks smooth speaking. That's why sometimes you speak better with friends, but freeze during interviews, or you speak well alone. But struggle in front of strangers, same English, different mental pressure. Think about it. I want you to remember this sentence. Your speaking ability is not always equal to your knowledge. Yeah, sometimes your ability is hidden behind pressure, and the good news, pressure can be trained, speaking can become easier. But first, you must stop fighting your brain and start understanding it. Because the reason your mind goes blank may surprise you even more. And in the next part, we'll talk about the biggest hidden enemy that silently destroys fluent. We discovered something important. Your mind does not go blank because you are bad at English. Yeah, most of the time, your brain becomes overloaded, but now we need to talk about something even more powerful. The hidden enemy, the thing that silently blocks your words before they even come out, and that enemy is, the habit of trying to be perfect. Pause. Think about your last English conversation. Before speaking, what happened inside your head? Maybe something like, wait, is this grammar correct? Should I use present perfect? And what if I pronounce this wrong? What if they laugh? What if I make mistakes? And suddenly, instead of speaking, you started thinking, too much thinking, and that's where the problem begins. Short pause. Imagine learning to ride a bicycle. Would you stop every second and ask, are my hands correct? Is my balance perfect? Am I moving ideally? No, because if you think too much, you fall. Speaking English works in a similar way. You cannot speak naturally while checking every tiny detail. Language is movement. Language rank, not a grammar exam. Think about it. Let me tell you about a learner named Daniel. Daniel spent years studying English. His notebooks were full, vocabulary lists, grammar rules, practice exercises. But when someone spoke to him in English, he became silent. And one day he asked himself, why do I know so much but speak so little? Then he noticed something. Every sentence in his mind had to pass through a filter, correct grammar, perfect pronunciation, perfect word choice, no mistakes. His brain became a security guard. Nothing came out unless it looked perfect. And because no sentence felt perfect, almost nothing came out. Maybe you relate to this. Pause. Now, I want to share something important. Native speakers make mistakes too. People who speak fluently pause, forget words. Restart sentences, change expressions. Communication is not perfection. Communication is movement. But many English learners treat speaking like performing surgery. Every word must be exact. That pressure creates fear, and fear creates silence. Short. Pause. Here's a simple example. You kiddo. Imagine someone asks, what did you do yesterday? Person A thinks, yesterday. Yesterday. Past tense, grammar, pronunciation, correct structure, revolt. Calm, long silence. Person B says, yesterday I go. Sorry, I went to market and met my friend. Not perfect. But communication happened. Who improved more? Usually person B, because speaking grows through use, not through waiting. And think about it. There's another hidden trap, translation. Many learners do this. First think in their own language, and then translate, then correct grammar, then speak. That process is slow. Your brain gets tired. And when the conversation moves faster, try this experiment. Tomorrow, choose simple thoughts during the day. Not difficult sentences. You can doubt so. Just simple. I am hungry. This weather is nice. I need water. I'm walking. Train your brain to think directly. Little by little, no pressure, no perfection, just connection, pause. Now, let's talk about fear. Because fear changes the brain, imagine your mind has two systems. One system helps you think, the other protects you. When you become nervous, the protection system becomes stronger. Your body starts saying, be careful. Don't embarrass yourself. And suddenly, your thinking becomes weaker. That's why even simple questions feel difficult. Your English disappears. Not because it's gone, but because your attention moved from speaking to surviving. Short pause. Here's a question. What if your next English conversation didn't have to be impressive? What if your only goal was keep talking? Even with mistakes, even slowly, how would that change things? Because sometimes fluency begins the moment perfection ends. And in the next part, we're going to talk about practical ways to stop freezing and train your brain to speak English naturally, even if you get nervous. Welcome back. Now that we understand why the mind goes blank and how perfection creates pressure, it's time to talk about something practical. Because understanding the problem is important, but changing the experience is where confidence starts growing. Let me ask you a question. What do you usually do after a difficult English conversation? Do you become disappointed? And do you replay every mistake in your head? Do you tell yourself, I should have spoken better? If yes, then you are doing what many learners do without realizing it. You are training your brain to fear speaking. Pause every time you treat speaking like a performance. Your brain remembers that pressure. Next time, before you even open your mouth, your mind prepares for danger instead of communication. But here's what successful speakers do differently. They don't ask, "Did I speak perfectly?" They ask, "Did I keep speaking?" That small change creates a completely different mindset because fluency is not built from perfect conversations. You can nick him. It is built from repeated conversations. Short pause. Imagine a child learning to walk. They don't stand up once and suddenly walk perfectly. They fall, they try again, they move awkwardly. But nobody says, maybe walking isn't for you. Okay, so why do adults become so hard on themselves while learning English? One mistake, one awkward moment, and suddenly they believe they are not good at languages. But language works the same way. Progress comes through imperfect. Think about it. Now, I want to share a method that can completely change how you speak. Okay, it's called the Wu second response rule. Here's how it works. Kink. When someone asks you a question in English, do not wait for the perfect answer. Respond within 5 seconds. Even if the sentence is simple, even if it's incomplete, even if you need to correct yourself. Anna, for example, question, what do you usually do on weekends? Don't stay silent trying to build the perfect answer. Can just begin. Usually, I stay home. Sometimes I watch movies. Once movement starts, more words appear. Speaking creates speaking. Okay, silence creates more silence. Pause. Another powerful technique is reducing sentence size. Many learners fail because they try to sound advanced. They want long sentences, complex vocabulary, perfect grammar. But simple English spoken confidently sounds stronger than complicated English spoken with fear. Instead of saying, due to unforeseen circumstances, I was unable to attend. Try, I couldn't come. Instead of, I have an immense interest in try, I really like, simple is not weak. Simple creates speed. Speed creates confidence. Confidence creates fluency, short pause. And here's something most people never realize. Your speaking level is usually lower than your understanding level. That's normal. You may understand videos easily but struggle to speak. That doesn't mean you're failing. Input and output develop differently. Think of it like water filling a bottle. You may already have knowledge inside. Now, speaking is the process of opening the cap. At first, the flow feels slow, then smoother, then natural. Think about it. Tonight, I want you to try one small challenge. Speak English alone for 2 minutes. Not memorized and not prepared. Just talk. Describe your day, describe your room, describe your plans. If you forget a word, continue. If grammar breaks, continue. Your only rule is do not stop. Because the moment you teach your brain that speaking is safe, your blank moments slowly begin to disappear. And in the next part, we'll talk about how to build real speaking confidence and finally stop feeling nervous during conversations. And welcome back. By now, you've probably realized something important. Your mind doesn't go blank because you lack intelligence. It doesn't happen because you're bad at English, and it definitely doesn't mean fluency is impossible for you. Most of the time, your brain is simply protecting itself from pressure. But now comes the next question. How do you build real confidence, not temporary confidence? Not I feel motivated today confidence, real confidence that stays with you when conversations become difficult? Pause. Here's the answer that surprises many people. Confidence does not come before speaking. Confidence comes after speaking. Read that again in your mind. Most people wilt to feel confident before they start. But confidence is usually the result, not the starting point. Think about riding a bicycle again. You don't become confident and then ride, you ride, feel unstable, improve, and confidence appears later. English speaking works the same way. Short pause. Many learners believe there is some magical day coming. And one day they'll wake up and suddenly speak confidently, but that day usually never arrives. Because confidence grows from evidence. Every time you speak, even for 30 seconds, your brain collects proof. Yo, I survived, I spoke, I was okay, and that proof becomes confidence. Think about it. Let's imagine two learners. One person practices English only when they feel ready. The other speaks every day for 5 minutes, even with mistakes. After 6 months, who becomes more confident? Usually the second person, because action teaches the brain more than motivation. This is why consistency matters more than intensity. You don't need 5 hours, you need repetition. Pause. Now let's talk about something important, self-judgment. This one silently destroys progress. Maybe after speaking you say things like, my pronunciation sounded terrible, I looked stupid, I forgot easy words. But ask yourself, would you speak to a friend that way? If your friend tried speaking English and struggled, and would you say you're hopeless? Probably not. You would encourage them. So why speak to yourself differently? Your internal voice becomes your learning environment. If your mind feels unsafe, speaking becomes harder. If your mind feels supportive, speaking becomes easier. Short pause. Here's a powerful shift. Replace this question. Was I perfect? Did I communicate? That one question changes everything because language exists to connect, not to impress. And when your goal becomes connection, pressure becomes smaller. Think about it. I want to give you another challenge. For the next 7 days, have one tiny English moment every day. It can be speak to yourself, and record a voice note, describe your breakfast, answer random questions, talk for 1 minute. That's all. Do not measure quality. Again, measure consistency. Your mission is simple. Show your brain that speaking is normal, not dangerous, not special, normal. Pause. And there's one more thing. Your fear of speaking may never disappear completely. Even fluent speakers feel nervous sometimes. The goal is not to remove nervousness. The goal is to speak even while feeling nervous. That's real growth. Because courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is moving while fear is still there. In short pause, and in the final part, we're going to bring everything together and talk about the mindset shift that helps people finally stop freezing and start becoming confident English speakers. Welcome back. If you've stayed until this point, I want to say something. What you're doing matters. Learning a language is not only about vocabulary, it's not only about grammar, it's not only about pronunciation. Learning to speak English is also learning how to stay calm when your mind feels pressure. And that changes more than language. It changes confidence, it changes opportunities, it changes how you express yourself. Pause. Today we talked about why your mind goes blank. We learned that it's usually not because your English disappeared. Your brain becomes overloaded. You start trying to be perfect, you judge yourself, you become afraid of mistakes, and then speaking starts feeling like a test instead of communication. But now I want to leave you with one final idea. Your goal is not to speak English without mistakes. Your goal is to speak English without stopping yourself. That one difference can change everything. Short pause, think back to when you first learned anything, maybe riding a bicycle, maybe using a phone, maybe editing videos. At first, everything felt slow. You had to think about every step. But over time, things became automatic. And English speaking follows the same pattern. Right now, you may still be thinking too much. That's okay. One day, sentences that feel difficult now will come naturally. Not because you became perfect, but because you became comfortable. Think about it. I want to tell you a short story. Imagine 2 doors. Behind the first door is perfect English, no mistakes, perfect pronunciation, perfect grammar. But the door never opens because you keep waiting. Behind the second door is imperfect English, small mistakes, simple sentences. Some awkward moments, but every time you walk through it, you become stronger month after month, year after year. Eventually, That second door quietly leads to fluency. Most fluent speakers walked through the second door. Pause. So, from today, make one promise to yourself. Do not wait to feel ready. Speak first. Confidence will follow. 2 secs. Do not wait for perfect grammar. Communicate first. Improvement will follow. Do not wait for fear to disappear. Start anyway. Okay? Growth will follow. Short pause. And the next time your mind goes blank, I want you to remember this. You stop. Breathe naturally, say something simple, keep moving, because silence is not proof that you cannot speak. It is often just proof that your brain needs practice feeling safe, and practice changes everything. And think about it. Before we finish, I want you to answer this in your own mind. What conversation have you been avoiding because you're afraid your English is not good enough? And what would happen if you gave yourself permission to try? Maybe your first sentence won't be perfect. But maybe that sentence becomes the beginning of a new version of yourself. Oh, thank you for spending this time with me today. If this episode helped you, share it with someone who struggles with speaking English and remind them their mind is not broken. Yay! It's learning, and every conversation is progress. This is FluentRise Podcast. I'll see you in the next episode. Take care and keep rising.